The subtitle of your book, The Reading Zone, is How to Help Kids Become Skilled, Passionate, Habitual, Critical Readers. That's quite a goal. So what are the core conditions that must exist for students to enter and stay inside the reading zone?
Well, the reading zone is a phrase that one of my students coined. We'd read an article in which the author talked about the reading state that engaged readers enter into, and that children who have a hard time becoming readers don't know or understand. And I showed the article to my students to see if they were familiar with what the author was talking about, and they were, but they immediately renamed the reading state the reading zone. And in their words, and I think it's an accurate description, it's the place where, it's the time and place when any reader gets lost in a book, when the outside world disappears and you enter into the life and the experiences of the characters. It mostly happens with story reading. And I think it's probably one of the best things about being, human and alive on the planet, that experience of the zone. And my students, when I query them about what makes it possible for them to go to that place and stay there, talked about frequent, voluminous, self-selected reading as the core condition for that kind of engagement. When they could choose their own books, it made a huge difference. They needed to be able to fall in love with stories and characters, and I think it's pretty near impossible for a teacher to choose the one book that a whole group of students can fall in love with. So self-selection is huge for them, but also time to read every day and an incredible assortment of books to choose from in terms of how they're going to occupy themselves during that time. So my students read in class every day. I came to the decision finally that probably nothing that I said in terms of my brilliant lectures was going to be as valuable as the time they spent with books. So for at least 20 minutes every day, there's time in class to read. And that's a core condition because over the course of a school year, 20 minutes at a time in school, followed by half an hour for homework every night of more pleasure reading. They'll read between 30 and 100 books in a year. So we know that frequent, voluminous reading is the key to becoming a skilled reader. There's really no shortcut. There's no other way to become somebody who's good at reading and loves it than to read a lot, to spend a lot of time with beloved books. So again, the basic core condition is that time to read, and then I think it's followed by a great selection of books and commercials. I call them book talks, to introduce kids to the titles that are in that great selection. So every week in my classroom, students or I talk about books we've loved to other kids in a formal, quick way, and kids keep lists of the books that they'd like to read someday. It's called their someday list. And so the record keeping and the planning, I think, are another part of that core set of conditions. They have free selection, but they also have plans, and they also have sales pitches. They have teachers who read, and they have colleagues, other students who read, and there's constant talk in the classroom about books that people loved and what people want to read next. There are arguments over books. There's passion around books. And I don't think we can ever expect kids to have the skill level, let alone the passion level, that all great readers have, unless those kinds of core conditions are honored. Unless there's time to read every day, unless there are lots of book choices, unless there are enthusiastic rave reviews of books that they can't wait to get their hands on. And I think unless they're surrounded by other people, including a grown-up who is clearly sold on life in the reading zone.